So I watched this movie alone in a cinema, and I have never felt more alone in a movie theater. Magic Mike XXL is directed by Gregory Jacobs, written by Reed Carolyn, and stars Channing Tatum, Amber Heard, and Jada Pinkett Smith. And Magic Mike XXL takes place 3 years from the events of the first movie. Mike Lane, still played by Channing Tatum, now has his own furniture company, but he's invited once again by his old crew to join them in this final road trip to this stripping convention so they can end their careers with a bang. First of all, I just want to point our attention towards the fact that this is one of the best titles for a sequel I've ever seen. It's a fantastic title, but it really does show me that bigger is not necessarily better, because for me, like, most of the substance from the first movie is gone in this movie. Although I will still admit that the stripping routines are way more entertaining, I think, and the chemistry between these guys is better than ever. Steven Soderbergh, who was the director for the last movie, returns to do the cinematography here, and it's as good as ever as well. I like how he's not afraid to plunge certain nighttime scenes into almost pure blackness, which makes the scenes feel a lot more authentic. And visually speaking, I think it's generally more of the same here, which is not a bad thing. And some of the props here, some of the production design during stripping routines are a lot crazier. It's a lot more ridiculous and way more entertaining as well. And just like the first movie, there's a lot of great music here as well. But for me, the highlights here aren't necessarily from the soundtrack, but the music that's sung in movie from the characters of Donald Glover and Matt Bomer, who surprisingly can really sing. As well as the song I Want It That Way by the Backstreet Boys. That's also a highlight because it plays into this one scene that's really entertaining. It's used perfectly. It's so funny. Steven Soderbergh is also once again the editor for this movie, and his editing during the dance sequences can just be absolutely bonkers at times, and I really like his decision to edit like the last 30 minutes or so of the movie in more or less real time, and it really immerses you into this experience. You really feel like you were at this convention watching this entire routine play out. Channing Tatum is great as always, and he doesn't let the movie's lighter tone get in the way of his being able to really show some real depth, which he does very well. Jada Pinkett Smith kind of takes Matthew McConaughey's role here, and she just absolutely commands the screen. She has this great mix of like menace and seductiveness at the same time. But really the stars of this movie are like the whole group of guys at the very center. Like, they display such a complex kind of camaraderie with one another that feels utterly genuine even when they're not saying anything to each other. You really feel like these guys are bonded for life. It's some of the best chemistry I've seen in 2015, honestly. And the director, Gregory Jacobs, definitely ups the technical skill and even the atmosphere of these dance sequences. He used to be Steven Soderbergh's first assistant director, and he's definitely picked up some tips from his old boss. However, I do have quite a few problems with Magic Mike XXL. For one, if you thought the first movie had slow moments, this one has way more slow moments and drawn out sequences that do begin to feel pretty indulgent. And there's some dance sequences that, dare I say, begin to come across as music videos after a while. These scenes really do begin to feel like they're overstaying their welcome, and I think it's partially also because of Gregory Jacobs, who, for me, doesn't really handle the dialogue scenes as well as Soderbergh did. He kind of confuses like the idea of staying out of the way of a scene with like flatness, and a lot of the scenes here just feel kind of flat. And for me, the biggest issue really is that the script here really has no substance to it, apart from like the characters sometimes spouting out philosophies about being a male entertainer, which in that regard is, you know, dialogue is kind of heavy-handed, it's kind of clumsy, and really the movie is largely plotless, and you don't really care about a lot of the character relationships here, especially like Mike and his new love interest, and you don't buy a lot of the character motivations either, especially Mike, who I don't believe would have gone back to stripping after what happened in the last movie, so I just couldn't get over that. However, I will still say that Magic Mike XXL is an okay movie, I suppose. I just wasn't a target audience for it, I think. This is definitely more for the people who expected the first one to be a straightforward stripper movie, like this is gonna give you what you want. Alright, so those are my thoughts on Magic Mike XXL. Have you guys seen it? What do you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.